Hello and welcome to what at least seems to be the end of winter. You can never be too sure, but at least today is quite nice and warm. So I'm out here photographing, and the camera I'm using today is Nikon D80, a very popular DSLR from the year 2006. Yeah, it was a quite good camera when it was released, and of course the question is it still a good camera enough for the demanding requirements of the year 2024? Well, the short answer is yes, definitely, at least in my own experience. Well, maybe not for video, because there is no video mode, but if you want a camera that only shoots photos, then it's a very good alternative. And the thing I like a lot about it is the, let's say, camera body design. The grip is quite nice and it's a quite good size. It's slightly smaller than the predecessor, the Nikon D70, and the camera is also not very heavy. It is much lighter than the Nikon D200, for example. So if you want to do like travel photography or more casual shooting, it is very nice for that because it doesn't become like very bulky or heavy. Still, of course, it depends on what lens you're using. This wide angle lens is quite heavy, so you can still feel the weight, but it's nowhere near as heavy as the Nikon D200. When it comes to the controls of the camera, the buttons are quite nice. I mean, they don't feel cheap or anything. There are two control wheels, one on the front and one on the back, like the typical Nikon layout, and they are quite good for using manual modes for changing the shutter and aperture. For changing the ISO, you have to press a button down and rotate, and the button does not have the best placement. The same goes for the white balance, so that's one area where the Nikon D200 is much better. Compared to its predecessor, the Nikon D70, you don't have these weird errors like you can sometimes get these memory errors, like you cannot read a memory card on the D70, and also the D70 suffers from an underexposure problem sometimes. Not all models always maybe, but I at least have it on my D70. I haven't encountered any such weird problems or bugs on the D80. It's quite a solid camera when it comes to usability. Of course, it's not as advanced as the D200 or a professional level camera, but for, let's say, casual shooting, it's very well designed. When it comes to the speed of the camera, well, it's not as fast as a Nikon D200, because that camera is like 5.5 FPS and more designed as a, let's say, sport events camera. When it comes to, let's say, writing and reading from memory, it is fast enough. It doesn't cause any delays like older Nikon cameras like the D100. So for, let's say, browsing photos and zooming in, for that is fast enough, definitely. This ice is creaking. I mean, I'm not like on any deep place or anything, but I should kind of get out of here, I suspect. So overall, it's a very nice camera. The one thing I can complain about is lens compatibility. Okay, sure, you can use the AF and AFD lenses, or most of them, without problem. That's great. For example, this felt 24mm Tokina lens it has the, what do you call it, the screw drive autofocus. So the focus motor is in the body of the camera, not the lens. But the problem is you don't get full compatibility with older AI and AIS lenses, the manual focus lenses, because it does not have the auto indexing tab. So you'll not get the aperture information to the camera, so you will not get like the full. You cannot use the light meter, camera's light meter when taking photos, unless you use stop-down metering, but it's not so convenient. One camera it gets compared to a lot is the Nikon D200, but I don't know, I mean, apart from the sensor, which is basically the same on both cameras, the only difference is that on the D200 it reads faster from the sensor, but the actual data it outputs from the sensor should be the same as the D80. So yeah, when it comes to the actual image quality, it should be pretty much identical to the D200. Now the big difference is in the body design, because the D200 is basically like professional grade, very similar to the D2, D2S. So the D200, well, it has a metal body, it's weather sealed, much more advanced controls than the D80. But on the maybe downside, it's more heavy. So the D80 is much better as a, let's say, casual camera or a travel camera. If you want a lighter camera with the same image quality as the D200, well, then the D80 is a good option. But yeah, I think that's enough information about the camera. Let's go and take some photos here. That like aluminium foil. Is there a roll of aluminium foil in the middle of the ground? The photography is going quite well today, even though the landscape is sort of, I don't know, brown. It's not dull at all because the sun does bring some life into it. And unlike autumn, spring does feel very hopeful, like soon there'll be summer and warm weather and things like that. So yeah, and the days have become much brighter now, which does help a lot. And this wooden boat is still here as well, of course. Well, where would it go to? One reason this camera is sort of popular again today is because it uses a CCD sensor, but at the same time there's sort of a hype about CCD sensor at the moment. At least from my own experience, there isn't really that big of a difference in colors compared to the, let's say, Canon CMOS cameras from the same time. But I guess I will find out which camera I like more when I get home and look at the photos. And here's one more boat, and it's like a note. Yeah, it says like they have to move the boat, and it's from last year, August last year. So it might as well be an abandoned boat. Yeah, this subject works much better with the wide angle lens.